On this episode of Self Builds by Fenton, what we're going to be talking about is Thames water build-over agreement and drainage, and how I got 2-time 3-bedroom properties through the process. Yes, people, just before I start, just wanted to say I went to Anthony LaVille's property event. It was mainly for commercial to residential, and him talking about the fact that he's worked on these huge, massive, projects of 200 plus flats in Birmingham, and I just wanted to say it was inspirational, and a shout out to Anthony LaVille, because we definitely need to do more of those, and try and improve the community, and get all the property heads out there talking, because I know property is quite an isolated, I feel, industry, but doing those events was really good because I made some really good connections there, and would love to do more of them. So shout out to Anthony. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about drainage and Thames water. Not the most exciting of videos, but we've got to do it, and it's so important to make sure that this element and phase is done correctly, because everything else we do is going to be on top of this, and there's going to be lots and lots of digging to do as part of this phase of the project. Because in our case, the manholes are like 6 foot deep, so we've got 2 of them. And if you assume, you're going to have a meter square around the manhole that you're going to need to dig, and it's going to be nearly as tall as me, or it's going to be just a bit shorter than me, because I'm about 6'7", but they're going to be deep, put it that way. So when we actually show you the videos of us digging, etc., that should be more exciting and fun. But we've got to get into the schematics of talking about the boring stuff, because it is critical and it is important that this is done properly to standard, so that when you start building on top of it, you're not having to undo any work. Having to undo work in the drainage is just a no-no, right? Because you're going to be building on top of it, or building around or near it. So let's get into it. So let's start off with why you need a build-over agreement. A build-over contract is a legal agreement between a property owner and the sewage provider when constructing or building close to a sewer. The main purpose of the contract is to safeguard the sewer and drainage system that serves the property and neighbouring areas. Additionally, the agreement ensures that Thames Water has the necessary access to maintain or repair the sewer network. It's imperative to obtain a build-over agreement before starting any construction work, as modifications to your design may be required, resulting in additional expenses and delays. It's essential to note that planning permission alone doesn't grant the permission to build close to a sewer or drain. So next, let's get into understanding what exactly you need to provide Thames Water in order for them to process your build-over application. We needed a site plan, so that this drawing should show the location of the proposed build-over, the sewer drain, along with the existing and proposed buildings, access routes and nearby utilities. Section drawings. These drawings should illustrate the depth and the position of the sewer of the drain relative to the proposed construction, as well as any protective measures that will be put in place. Structural engineers plans. So these plans would show the design and layout of the proposed foundation and any modifications required to accommodate the sewer or drain. And then construction details. These should demonstrate how the construction will be carried out, including excavation methods, materials, any used temporary supports required. Well, they'll probably need that, because obviously ours are like 6 foot deep, so we don't want someone getting buried under tons of rubble. And then I forgot to mention building control drawings. These drawings should show how the proposed construction will meet the relevant building regulations. It's worth also taking into consideration that depending on where you are in the country, you have different people managing your mains water. So I'm based in East London, our project's based in East London, so Thames Water are the people that are managing the water supply from a public perspective. Just to call out, the only understanding that I had about the drainage was the fact that it ran under the house somewhere. The next kind of stage was trying to work out which resource we need to understand, the schematics of the drainage situation in our property. Also, we knew that in the back garden there's 2 manholes. Here's a picture of what they look like inside. So as you can see, both of these manholes are about 6 feet deep. So taking that into consideration, we realized that, irrespective of what work needs doing, potentially, it's going to be a lot of digging involved based on what we're trying to do. As the manholes are 6 feet deep, our expectation for what we need to do next was a bit confusing, because usually they're not that deep. I think these are really, really old drainage systems. And when we spoke to Thames Water, they also said that basically they didn't have, our drainage or our sewage line stored on their records. So that just goes to show and goes to tell you that, they didn't even have a record of what was going on. So I'll just give you a little summary of the position of our scenario for the project that we're working on. So, as I mentioned earlier, I had no clue or no idea as to what resources was needed for understanding, how the sewage and drainage worked in the back garden. So what we did was, get a drainage expert to come around and have a look and help us from an expert perspective. And again, massive, emphasis on getting experts out, because, if you get cowboys out, you're going to get a half-assed job done. And as a result, it's probably going to cost you more time and more money. So in order to mitigate that, get the best of the best and see how much you can get for free, right? So, up until the point they say, nope, I need payment, see how much, you can glean from somebody on that basis before you actually spend any money. Usually, really good people, they provide lots of value, and then you end up spending money with them anyway because you know that they're doing a good job. So with this bit, it's probably easier if I just show you a drawing, because it's very hard to conceptualize and visualize what, the proposed approach was. Because there's lots of people saying lots of different things. The architect was saying one thing, the drainage engineer was saying another thing, and obviously Thames Water, whose voice you want to listen to, is saying something completely different. So it's working out who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't. And from all three of those areas I've just called out, naturally the Thames Water are the people you need to listen to. But there's one other body involved as well, which is building control. They have the final say, and you'll see later on in the episode that they're the ones that kind of dictate as to the position on what exactly we're doing, irrespective of the fact that Thames Water have given us a view or perspective. And main reason for that is because building control, if you've watched my other episodes, they just ensure everything from a compliance perspective is on point, whether that be them going to visit the site, making sure the drainage is done correctly, or whether that is them, being sent pictures to confirm that everything's done to the correct standard. Here is the current position of, the drainage situation. And we'll first start by looking at what the drainage engineer said the situation was with our current house in terms of how the flow and drainage work in terms of private and public manholes. So as you can see, what he said, we've got two manholes in the back garden. One's private, which is blue, and anything in red is essentially shared. So that's public. So from a Thames Water perspective, that's what they're concerned about touching. So that was our perspective of, what the drainage position looked like post the drainage engineer's review. And then what you'll see over time is how different resources have different perspectives on what should be done. So his suggestion was, obviously on this page, you can see we've got two manholes there existing, and where those two manholes are, the extension for the new property is going to be, covering those. As a result, we're going to need to move to a proposed view, which is this. So what he suggested is we remove the private manhole, which is in blue, get rid of it. We keep manhole 1, but kind of put a double sealed cover on top of manhole 1, which is Thames Water's public sewer, which would mean that within the new kitchen, when the extension's built, you're going to have a manhole inside that kitchen. Now, obviously, if there's any works that need to be done from a drainage perspective, people's kitchen's going to get ruined, and it could be, a health and safety risk. So what Thames Water have introduced, and I can't remember when it was, but you're no longer allowed to build within the property itself and keep the manhole inside the property. So what you have to do is you have to create another manhole out the back of the property, which will allow rodding access into the main sewer pipe all the way through to the front of the house. So you'll see when I show you the next iteration of these drawings, once we got the architect involved, how the architect interpreted what we should do as a result of the project that we're doing. And just quickly, I just want to show off my Photoshop and Illustrator skills. I put this together myself after the drainage engineer came around to give people a bit more detailed understanding as to the exact position. So this is what it looks like within the manholes themselves. They're 6 foot deep, as I mentioned before. So yeah, just take that into consideration. And obviously they're all bricked up. So when we start building the new manholes out the back of the house, I believe they're going to need to be as deep as these ones. I just wanted to show off my Photoshop skills on this. So this is the architect's proposed submission to Thames Water. Well, not proposed, this is what was submitted and approved via Thames Water. So number 1 on the map is a manhole in the public road, which again exists. It's got nothing to do with us though, and our project. It's just there for visibility. Number 2 is not existing, and this is what the architect suggested we need to have, and I'll come back to that later. He suggested we need a new manhole in the front garden. Manhole 3, that one exists currently, as you've seen on the last diagrams. Manhole 4 also exists currently, and manhole 5 does not yet exist. Manhole 6 does not yet exist, and manhole 7 does exist. So let's go back to manhole 2, for which the architect needed we needed in the front garden. Now, when I spoke to Thames Water, they said that there's no requirement for that second manhole. So there you go, you know, a distinction between, firstly, the drainage engineer who didn't even mention anything about it. Then your architect said that, you know, he recommends you put one there. And then you speak to Thames Water, and then they said that we don't need it there. So we're not going to put it there because we're going to have to dig 6 feet deep in the front garden, which is just going to be an unnecessary spend. So you just got to watch out for stuff like this when you're a self-builder, so that you don't get caught out doing work that you don't need to do. And obviously we've paid the architect to just draw a square box on the drawing here. Looking at manhole number 3. So remember we said that the drainage engineer said that manhole 3 was a public mains. And remember we said that the drainage engineer said that manhole 3 was a private manhole. You can do what you wanted with it, and he suggested just getting rid of it. Now, when we spoke to Thames Water, when I spoke to Thames Water, they said that actually, in fact, it's not a private manhole, it's a public manhole. Reason being is that the flow of water or sewage, let's just say, from the public sewer, from public sewer 7 through to 4 and then through to 1, anything that goes down that stream is considered public. So in fact, the drainage engineer was wrong. Again, something to consider and sense check everything so you're not being sent down the rabbit hole. But as I said, the drainage here and the architect obviously are helpful in relation to moving things forward, but you just kind of got to keep an eye on people and just, you know, hold things to account so that you're not, you know, doing unnecessary work or making mistakes. So in actual fact, Thames Water, and I got confirmation with this when I spoke to them, they said that you can remove completely manhole 3 and remove completely manhole 4. And what you will replace manhole 3 with would just be a connection pipe between manhole 2 and manhole 5 when it's built. Same thing with manhole 4. This needs to be a connection pipe all the way through, so you've got a nice smooth run. Where you've got manhole 7 coming through, there's going to be something called a Y bend, and that will act as, you know, the filtration system between manholes 5 and 3. So yeah, we're still waiting for the building control guy to confirm all of this, but yeah, I've literally just sent him an email to confirm that's what we're doing, because he's got to sign this all off, so we've got to make sure he's happy. I hope that all makes sense. I think I've covered everything there. But yeah, you can see now the complexity of making sure that you get everything right, because you just don't want to be digging and, you know, doing things wrong, because it's just going to, again, just cost you time, money, and obviously the quality is going to be impacted because you're going to have to undo work. And it's funny because coming from an IT background, it's so easy to undo work in IT, but in building, it ain't. So you got to make sure you triple check, quadruple check if you need to to make sure that the drainage element of your project is correct. So just to be clear, the resources that you're most likely going to need for this phase, and again, everyone's scheme is different, but for what we needed, obviously Thames Water is one of the stakeholders because they need to sign off the build-over agreement. You need an architect to do your drawings for you, although when I spoke to Thames Water, they said you don't necessarily need an architect to do it. It's quite straightforward, but we've paid the architect to do it anyway. You're going to need a drainage engineer. Naturally, a drainage engineer can help you scheme out where the pipes run, the run heights, etc. And naturally, you're going to need building control out to inspect to make sure from a client compliance perspective, they're happy. So I'm keeping the episode short, mainly because it saves me editing time. And secondly, I don't want to bore you to death because this phase of the project isn't very exciting, right, in terms of drainage. So on the next episode, I'm going to be talking about some more detail in relation to drainage and Thames Water, and some of the hints and tips to help you along on your journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yes, I'll see you on the next episode.